Today we're going to be talking about gerunds. Now, gerunds can be found in your book in Chapter 9 and on these following pages: 152, 153, 159, 160, and in the back of your book from A17 through A19. Now, first we're going to be looking at gerunds in the simple form. There are four main categories. First, gerunds that function as nouns. 2, gerunds as subjects or subject complements. 3, gerunds that follow some verbs. And 4th, gerunds that can follow prepositions. First, let's look at the first category, gerunds that function as nouns. Now, these gerunds have to do with all verbs except the modal auxiliaries that have gerund forms. Now, a gerund can be one word, like working, or it can be part of a larger phrase, like working as a researcher. Second, gerunds as subjects or subject complements. Gerunds can be the subject of a sentence, and here's a sentence here: working teaches you responsibility and discipline. So in this sentence, working is the gerund and it is the subject of the sentence. Now, gerunds can be subject complements, and the subject complement describes the subject of the sentence. Now, here's an example of a gerund as a subject complement. Her first job was working as a researcher. Third, gerunds can follow some verbs. So when a gerund follows a verb, it becomes the object of the verb. And some verbs can only be followed by gerunds. Here's some examples of some verbs: avoid, dislike, enjoy, finish, go, practice, and quit. Here are some example sentences. The verb is underlined and the gerund is in blue. I avoid having disagreements at work. Do you really enjoy working 60 hours a week? I finish teaching at noon every day. I practice making new desserts on the weekend. Now, gerunds can be object complements when following these verbs, like have difficulty, fun, or a problem like spending or wasting time. Here are some sentences. Don't spend time worrying. Worrying is the gerund, and they are the object complement to this verb or this verb phrase, don't spend time. I'm having difficulty focusing on my work. Focusing is the gerund. Having difficulty is the verb. I have fun working on art projects. Working is the gerund. Have fun is the verb. Gerunds can also follow prepositions. I'm going to show you 4 examples that involve prepositions and gerunds, and also with verbs, adjectives. First, verb plus preposition plus gerund. He succeeded by working hard for his entire life. Working is the gerund, by is the preposition, and succeeded is the verb. Now here's an example of adjective plus preposition plus gerund. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Afraid is your adjective, of is your preposition, and making is your gerund. Here's an example of a noun, preposition, and gerund. Just the thought of multitasking makes me nervous. Multitasking is your gerund, preposition of, and thought is the noun. Now here's an example of just a preposition plus a gerund. Without saying goodbye, she left. Saying is your gerund, without is your preposition. Now I'm going to talk about the types of gerunds. This can be found on page A17 in the back of your book. I have just given you examples of gerunds in the simple form. Here's another example. We recommend calling, or we recommend not calling. You can see that the simple gerund form ends in ing. Now in the following slides, I'm going to show you how to use gerunds in the perfect form and gerunds in the passive form. You will start to notice the formula here for perfect and passive. Let's look at gerunds in the perfect form. And the formula is going to be having plus your past participle of the verb. Now, gerunds in the perfect form show the difference in time between two events. The event in the perfect gerund happened before the time of the main verb. And the perfect gerund is often unnecessary if the time is understandable from the context. So if this is the case, then you should use the simple gerund form. Here are some examples. We have the first event, which is the money disappeared, and the second event, the man denied stealing the money. And the sentence in the perfect form, gerund form, would be, he denied having taken the money. So here's your having, and then here's your verb in the past participle. So once again, the first event is the money disappeared, and the second event, the man denied stealing the money. Now, when the time is clear, we use the simple gerund form. So here's an example of when it's unnecessary to use the perfect gerund form. So instead, you might say, instead of saying this sentence, you might say this sentence. So I could say, after having completed the project on time, I felt relieved. Well, on time tells me that I have a specific moment, so the time is clear. Okay, so then I can use the simple gerund form, and here's the simple gerund form right here. After completing the project on time, I felt relieved. Once again, the simple gerund form is going to be your verb plus the ing. Now let's talk about passive gerunds. Passive gerunds focus on the receiver of the action and not the performer of the action. Passive gerunds are used when you want to emphasize the receiver, or when the performer is not important, or the performer is unknown, or it is obvious who the performer is. Passive gerunds often do not mention the performer at all. Now, the formula for passive gerunds involves get or getting plus the passive gerund, and these are used when we want to show more emotion. The be or being plus the passive gerund are used to describe people and not objects. Now let's look at some example of passive gerunds. Here's the formula again, being plus the past participle, or getting plus the past participle. Once again, getting plus the past participle, or the passive gerund, is used when I want to be more emotional, and being plus the passive gerund, or being plus the past participle, is used to describe people and not objects. So here's my example. I don't like being told what to do. Here's your being plus the past participle, your gerund here, told. Now here's an example of getting plus the past participle, or your gerund. She doesn't bother getting dressed on the weekends. So this one is a more emotional statement, and so we're going to use being, and this is talking about a person. Okay, she doesn't bother getting dressed. We're talking about a girl here. That's the end of talking about gerunds.